Good afternoon. My name is Kurt Beckett. I'm the chair of the Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council. I'm calling this special meeting to order. And let me first begin by thanking our community members who are here. And please, for those who are still joining us this evening, come on in. And agendas are in the back. I think most folks have had a chance to pick one of those up. But if you wish to have an agenda, they are available in hard copy in the back. This is a hybrid meeting, so we do have a number of potential participants online, as well as a couple of our council members. So thanks for all council members, as well as the public, using the microphones clearly when you do, and I'll try to lead by example in that regard. I wanted to, beyond again, thanking the community, including those who have helped make sure that we were able to host this important conversation tonight. Appreciate being here. It's good to be here again, I will say. And I was going to further explain just briefly the meeting agenda, which will be adopted by the council here shortly, but just to kind of explain what we're here to do. And so first, of a two-part agenda, we have the special council meeting here at 5:30. And FSEC, as far as the what, is holding a special council meeting to take up the request from Cypress Creek Renewables to grant expedited processing of the application. That's under WAC 80.50.05 for the authority that is associated with this potential action. Expedited processing means that instead of a formal trial type adjudicative hearing at which expert testimony and exhibits may be presented, subject to cross-examination by attorneys for parties supporting and opposing the project, the council instead holds a less formal public comment hearing to help it develop its final recommendation to the governor. And staff will be further explaining both the timeframe from where this started to where we are tonight to a general forecast of where we go from here in the staff presentation shortly. Upon the council's discussion and potential action here tonight, if that expedited processing is granted, then we would move into the public comment hearing, which would then essentially allow public comment on where the council goes from here and the staff additional processing. So that's in general what we're planning for. Thanks for putting up with me on my new first time at a field meeting like this as the chair. And I will check with staff just to make sure I haven't missed anything in the initial overview of tonight. Okay, and again, just to consider for your comments, I'll repeat some of this shortly, but just in case you need to think about it, comments can be left with staff in the box in the back. You are welcome, of course, if you've signed up to make verbal testimony here tonight. You can certainly email FSEC at the various email addresses noted, both online and here in the room. If you wish to send us a comment to supplement any verbal comments tonight, or if you think of something tomorrow morning or the next day, you can email us, and certainly we'll make sure your input is considered as part of the council review going forward. So with that, let me then move to asking our clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Beckett. For the record, this is Andrea Grantham. Starting with Department of Commerce. Department of Ecology.
Eli Levitt, present.
Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Kate Pamplin, present.
Department of Natural Resources.
Lenny Young, present.
Utilities and Transportation Commission.
Stacy Brewster, present.
For Klickitat County, Matt Childs.
Matt Childs, present.
Assistant Attorney Generals, John Thompson.
John Thompson, present.
Zach Packer. And Talia Tuitt. For council staff, I will call Sonia Bumpus.
Sonia Bumpus, present.
Amy Hofkemeyer.
Amy Hofkemeyer, present.
Joanne Snarsky.
Joanne Snarsky, present.
Joan Owens is here as well as Alex Shiley and Carl Halapa. And then do we have anyone present for the Council for the Environment?
Yes, Sarah Reineveld is present virtually.
Thank you, Chair. There is a quorum.
Thank you. Council, the council has the agenda before you. I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Lenny Young, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to adopt the agenda has been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Okay, the agenda is adopted. And we will move into our staff presentation first. And I believe we have some additional information from Cypress Creek Renewables, who will follow staff and in general staff and Cypress Creek are here to answer council questions as we get into the discussion shortly. So with that, Director Bumpus, I'll turn it to you first.
Thank you, Chair Beckett, and good afternoon, council members. We have Joanne Snarsky, our siting specialist assigned for this project, who's going to do a staff presentation. We'll discuss the SEPA information and the comments that we received on the draft MDNS.
And I friendly reminder to myself, but also staff, best we can on acronyms as we go, especially since I think more of this will be a verbal meeting. MDNS is again mitigated determination of non-significance. So you'll hear that acronym a lot tonight. So mitigated determination of non-significance. That's a term under SEPA, the State Environmental Policy Act. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. Again, this is Joanne Snarsky, the siting specialist for Carriger Solar. Oh, yeah, let's get there. Okay. Tonight I would like to review with you the application activities that have led to this meeting. The purpose is to bring you Cypress Creek Renewables' request for expedited processing of their application. I got too many buttons here. So under RCW 80.50.075, it identifies two criteria for an applicant to meet to be granted approval for expedited processing of their application. The first is the applicant's project must be found to be consistent and in compliance with city, county, or regional land use plans or zoning ordinances at the time of the application. Second, the impacts to the environment from the proposed facility are found to be not significant or will be mitigated to non-significant level. Carriger formally submitted their application to FSEC on February 10th, 2023. We held the public information meeting in April that year at this same facility. The following month in May, we held a virtual land use consistency hearing and took written comments and testimony on that topic. On September 25th, 2023, FSEC published Order 889, confirming the project was consistent with land use requirements and meets the first requirement for granting an expedited processing of the application. With regards to the second criteria towards approval of expedited processing, during the formal SEPA process, FSEC issued a letter to Cypress Creek Renewables on August 8th, 2023, notifying them that our evaluation found that identified project impacts to visual and cultural resources were likely to be significant. SEPA rules allow the applicant to work with the lead agency to make further changes or mitigation that reduce impacts down to the level of non-significance. Between August 2023 and July 2024, we worked extensively with Cypress Creek Renewables, and they were able to accommodate further setbacks from the roadways on both SR 142 and Knight Road. In mid-2023, the Yakima Nation made it known that the project would have impacts to traditional cultural properties in the area. FSEC entered into an interagency agreement with them to allow them time to study and identify those impacts. To that end, on October 28, 2024, They provided FSEC with a final traditional and cultural resources report. As it was, and it will remain confidential, the Yakima Nation were able to provide a summary letter that we were able to subsequently share with Cypress Creek Renewables. Based on the information in that letter, Cypress Creek Renewables proposed mitigation measures for the Yakima's consideration. Following further discussions with both the tribe and Cypress Creek Renewables, FSEC approved with modifications mitigation measures to traditional and cultural properties on March 12th, 2025. To finalize the formal SEPA process, on April 7th, 2025, FSEC published the notice for a mitigated determination of non-significance for a 14-day public comment period. Following review of all the comments, it was determined that the proposed mitigation in the notice met the requirements for reducing all impacts down to a level of non-significance. With the determination of land use consistency and a final MDNS, the Carriger project meets the requirements for expedited processing. In preparation for this meeting, FSEC posted a draft order for public comment between April 29th and May 1st, 2025. We received 8 comments. 7 of the comments were directed at either opposition or in support of the project. Comments from the Yakima Nation requested the council decline the request for expedited processing and instead allow for a formal adjudicative process. Next steps start with tonight. Where we are now is determination of expedited process. To follow, depending on the outcome, will be the public comment meeting. During our next council meeting scheduled for May 21st, the council deliberations, action as desired, and the same with the June meeting, June 18th, 2025. I think one thing I left off of this slide was actually tomorrow, May 6th, we will be having a on-site visit for the council members to show them the specific areas that we're speaking of for this facility. And that's it.
Were there any other verbal comments, Director Bumpus, before we move to Cypress Creek, if that's the next step?
Thank you, Chair Beckett. The only comment I'd make, and I think this may have been noted in the presentation, is that we are working with the Yakima Nation to schedule a discussion and potentially consultation with our chair. Those discussions are underway, but to my knowledge, we do not yet have a meeting with the Yakima scheduled yet. So that's something that is what we anticipate in being included in the steps ahead.
Very good. Joanne, if you could help me then introduce our guests from Cypress Creek and how this next presentation will go.
Yeah, John Hanks with Cypress Creek Renewables. He will be presenting a short overview of some of the changes that have occurred over the last couple of years from where we started to where we've landed. I think it's very brief, and I'm sorry I don't remember your title, John. Director of Development. Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you. I'm not sure. Oh.
And I'm sorry, if you could reintroduce yourself to the the group that's also in the room, we'd appreciate that.
Yeah, John Hanks, Cypress Creek Renewables, Director of Development. And apologize, I'm not facing everybody, but I guess
Okay.
I'll have to face this direction with the microphone. What's that? All right, we'll keep it short and sweet. We had a longer presentation at the land use meeting 2 years ago. And so we'll do 2 slides, quick refresher of what we shared in that presentation, and then another slide of the changes that we've made in the 2 years since. So this first slide you can see is an overlay of our project area with the zoning code at the time of our project application. The purple areas you can see here, those are areas of Carriger solar. And then the yellow and green, those are the zoning at the time. And as you can see, the red hatched area, that's the energy overlay zone. And we tried to keep as much of the project in that energy overlay zone as we could. You'll see that there is some project that's north of there, and that the reason for it is the night substation, the BPA substation is north of there, and that's where we are connecting to the grid. So everything down in the hatched area was allowed per zoning at the time of the application. Everything in the north was allowed by a CUP. And this is clearly way too small to read, but we'll go over the high level. The maximum project extent, that's the maximum area that our project is contained within. We tried to design it in a way that avoided environmental impacts. So we are minimizing any impacts to wetlands and other sensitive habitats. Housing and residential, we have a minimum of 500-foot setbacks for any residences to the project. And economy, it's over 300 jobs, construction jobs at the peak of construction, and some operational jobs following the delivery. There's also a significant tax base as a result of the project for the county. Next slide, please. Since then, we've worked with FSEC and others to produce some changes to the project. The first one is increased setbacks. So we've increased the setbacks at Knight Road, minimum of 100 feet to the fence, 120 feet to the panels. We also increased the setbacks from the DNR property, the state-owned lands that are south of the Knight substation. We've revised the fence design. Originally, we had a cyclone fence, a chain link fence with barbed wire on top. So we've changed that design so that it's now a welded wire game fence to better blend in with the surroundings. Additional wetland considerations. In 2024, the Department of Ecology came out and did additional field work to locate additional vernal pools and wetlands. So we stayed within our maximum project extent, but we're able to relocate some of the solar panels to avoid the additional wetlands that were discovered. And then noise monitoring, if you go through the MDNS from FSEC, you'll see that there are requirements for noise monitoring to make sure that we're staying within the noise ordinance and code. We also worked with the Department of Agriculture to review our project and talk with the farmers and ranchers in the area that are participating. And as a result of that, we came up with some soil testing regimen by which we'll test the soil during the project and pass those results on to Department of Agriculture. And then finally, the MDNS, we don't have time to go through everything in the MDNS, but if you read through it, you'll see that there's an additional list of mitigation measures that have been included for the project. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanks. I believe that concludes the formal presentation, unless there was anything further, Amy or Sonia. Let me check with you, and otherwise I believe there's probably questions from the council and discussion that we would jump into next, but anything further from staff first?
No, Chair Beckett, I think we'll see what questions council has.
Okay. Well, let me turn this to my colleagues to see if there are comments, questions. All are welcome. So happy to take in order of the table or whoever's got their hand up.
Lenny Young.
Thank you. Mr. Young, I believe Council Brewster flagging it. You are up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Beckett. I will be voting no on expedited processing. I'm citing to the letter from Yakima Nation that the council received on May 1st, a few days ago, and to the particular statement in that letter that without an adjudication, Yakima Nation has no direct or confidential avenue to communicate the project's negative impacts on our membership, nor to propose appropriate avoidance or mitigation measures for your consideration. And I think it's very important that Yakima Nation has this opportunity. So I will be voting no.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Mr. Childs seems to be ready.
Yes, Chair Beckett, thank you. I also have a question about the Yakima Nation. I'm not sure who would be able to address it, but it seemed that the Yakima's concerns were addressed and now they are not addressed. So what is the true situation and what concerns were addressed and why are they complaining with, I assume, justifiable complaints that there are still concerns that need to be addressed? Can someone speak more to that?
I can speak to that. For the record, this is Sean Green. I'm a SEPA specialist for FSEC attending virtually. In our discussions with the Yakima Nation, they had identified several different impact types associated with traditional cultural properties in the region where the project is to be located. These included things such as visual impacts to TCP's traditional cultural properties from the project's development, as well as loss of quality of experience by tribal members who would be accessing these TCPs to continue traditional cultural practices, and loss of sense of place and cultural attachments to the areas. We had several discussions with the Yakima Nation to try to identify mitigation measures that could be applied to the project that would address these concerns. Staff came to the conclusion that sufficient mitigation was available to reduce these impacts to a level below significant. The Yakima Nation does not agree with that determination by staff. That is the point of contention at this point, is we have identified mitigation and the applicant has agreed to implement that mitigation that we believe, based on updated visual simulations that the applicant has provided, do reduce those impacts to a level below significance, and the Yakima Nation does not agree.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
If you have other questions, Mr. Childs, or comment, you're certainly welcome to make them now or in a few minutes. I just want to make sure you understood. If you've got other questions, we're happy to hear them.
Thank you. That was my main at this point. But I may have a couple more in a bit.
Sure. Very well. Other comments or questions from the council for staff or applicant? Or one another, I guess, too.
No, Chair Beckett.
Director Bumpus.
Thank you, Chair Beckett. For the record, this is Sonia Bumpus. Mr. Green on the line talked a little bit about the work with the Yakima to address concerns and application of the mitigation that's in the MDNS. I wonder if Mr. Green could talk a little bit about the concerns that are specific to the adjacent parcel that the Yakima had communicated to us.
Yeah. So I don't know in how much detail we want to go, as this is a public meeting and the location and nature of TCPs are a confidential matter. But the Yakima Nation did produce a traditional cultural property survey at the Yakima Nation's request. It was part of FSEC SEPA process to help the Yakima Nation identify TCPs in the region and explain to FSEC their inherent values to the tribe, the anticipated impacts to those TCPs from the project. And the Yakima Nation did provide several mitigation measures that they stated would be an appropriate beginning point for providing technical mitigation to those impacts. The primary mitigation that FSEC has employed to address those impacts is our setbacks. The project has been redesigned several times through communications with the applicant, and FSEC has employed setbacks along Knight Road and the state route nearby the project that would reduce visual impacts to tribal members who use those primary arterial routes to access TCPs in the area. And FSEC has implemented setbacks elsewhere in the project that would reduce visual impacts to TCPs in the area. The Yakima Nation also identified cumulative impacts that were of substantial concern to them that would be resultant from this project and a future reasonably foreseeable project that FSEC and the Yakima Nation are aware of in the area that is currently in pre-application with FSEC. Based on the information available to FSEC, it is anticipated that the reasonably foreseeable project in the future would have much more substantial impacts to the TCPs that have been identified. And FSEC believes that more substantial mitigation should be applied to that future project as opposed to this project, as it would have a much higher degree of impact.
And so just to add to, this is, for the record, this is Sonia Bumpus, just to add to what Mr. Green just said, that proposal that he mentioned as a reasonably foreseeable future action, it is in pre-application status right now, but it has not submitted a formal application. It's not formally before the council to make any determination or decision on. So what we anticipate is that if that project moves forward, FSEC does receive an application for site certification, SEPA would be conducted on that site and the impacts from that proposal. And we anticipate that some of these concerns that we've heard about for this proposal are likely to be something that we'll be analyzing and evaluating as part of that SEPA review.
And could you also expand, Director Bumpus, as I understand it, on what the FSEC and then by extension the council can or cannot do on this project in terms of anticipating those potential future conflicts? Is that allowable to be considered under SEPA?
Under
this
the
project, my understanding is that it is not, but would appreciate your clarification to make sure we understand clearly.
Well, under the State Environmental Policy Act, you can analyze cumulative impacts. My understanding is that we did look at evaluate some cumulative impacts. We certainly talked about it internally as we were analyzing the impacts and reviewing the application. And the primary concern, one of the primary concerns had to do with access to the other site, for which FSEC has no control. So under the State Environmental Policy Act, we can only mitigate for impacts that are proposed from this project that's before us. We could do a cumulative impact assessment on the other application if it were to come before us. You can do cumulative effects assessments, but understanding that this seemed to be a concern about access, and this applicant has no site control for that adjacent site, we really did not see any way to we didn't identify any mitigation that would address that issue.
And if I can add on to that, again, for the record, this is Sean Green, SEPA specialist for FSEC. Under SEPA, we should and in fact are required to perform cumulative impact analysis of any project for which we are taking an action or reviewing an application. And that is the cumulative impacts are the impacts of the project when combined with other past, present, or reasonably foreseeable future developments. When assigning mitigation, however, mitigation for cumulative impacts for a specific project should be commensurate with that project's contribution to those cumulative impacts. So, like Director Bumpus mentioned, one area of particular concern for the Yakama Nation is a property that does contain a TCP for which the Yakama Nation still uses for cultural practices on a regular basis. That property is outside of the project boundary for this project, but it is within the boundary of that reasonably foreseeable future project. That is why the mitigation that staff have recommended for this project, Carriger, we believe is commensurate to this project contribution to impacts to that external property. For that reasonably foreseeable future project, we would anticipate much more substantial mitigation as it would result in direct physical impacts to that TCP property.
Very good. Thank you for the clarification. I will just note I do have a question on adjudication and the tribal consultation. I just want to acknowledge it, but let me first see if there are other questions or comments other council would like to make.
I have another comment, Mr. Chair, or a question rather. Can you speak a little bit more about the welded wire game fence? How tall is that? Is it designed to allow game to pass through or over, or to exclude game? What would that look like?
It's a 8-foot fence, and the bottom is not flush with the ground. So as the ground undulates, there'll be room for small mammals to pass underneath. We walked through the design with the Department of Fish and Wildlife to make sure that they were comfortable with it. And that's how we came up with that plan, both for the wildlife perspective and the visual impact.
Do you have any way for deer to get through, or is this a large deer barrier?
Yeah, we have wildlife corridors that we've planned into the project. If you look at the application, I believe we have a figure that shows those wildlife corridors, and happy to provide additional info on that as well.
Okay, but it is the intent, just so I'm clear, that deer are not living within the project area. Is that correct?
That's correct. The intent is they'll be able to pass in multiple locations through the project,
Right.
but not in the actual solar arrays.
Okay.
Thank you. Council Pamplin, I think
Yeah.
you look like you had a question or comment.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Maybe this is a question or clarification from Director Bumpus, but appreciated in the staff overview, kind of the history of the different events and some of the comments received on the draft order. There was concerns that it was just a 3-day comment period, and just wanted to ask for kind of clarification or explanation on why it was an abbreviated comment period.
Thank you for the question. For the record, this is Sonia Bumpus. So there's a couple of reasons for the, I guess you could say, slightly compressed comment period. First off, the requirement for FSEC to take comment on draft documents and proposed action items on our agendas, that is relatively recent. It was in 2022. that the Open Public Meetings Act was changed, and all final actions that are taken up by a body such as this have to provide opportunity for public comment prior to taking any final action. So because of that requirement, FSEC now puts draft documents that are the subject of a potential action item out for public comment. In this case, we only have an application extension to, I believe it's June 25th. So we do not have a whole lot of time to complete our steps that we're required to complete to get the recommendation completed. And so for one is the requirement under the OPMA, which requires public comment. This is in addition to public comment requirements that are already in other rules that we adopt, either ours or others. And then also a pretty compressed project schedule.
Please. Mr. Chair, yeah, thanks, Director Bumpus. That's helpful to me, and just wanted to address that because that was something that was reiterated throughout the comments on the draft order. My next question is more just of a process question, so I can understand kind of what happens next for this particular fork in the road. So if the council were to grant the order, does that later become, later in May or at the June meeting council deliberation, a yes, no on the project? Or is there an avenue from that step to go back to an EIS and other things that Yakima Nation was requesting?
So for the record, this is Amy Hofgemeyer. So the decision in front of the council today is to take up the question of expedited process so that would be a decision of whether or not to grant expedited process and move forward with a less formal comment hearing, and then into a recommendation. In the statute, and I apologize, I'll have to look up the exact citation, but the statute indicates 60 days from the granting of expedited process to a recommendation to the governor. And so the tentative schedule in front of us that was on Ms. Snarsky's slides falls within that time frame. If the council were to not grant expedited process, that would then be the path of an adjudicative process.
Mr. Chair, thanks. So within the 60 days, if the order was granted, we're in the expedited review process, there's no off-ramp back to the adjudicative process then?
So I believe the statute that talks about expedited process, RCW, Revised Code of Washington 80.50.075, says that basically that the council may grant expedited process, and that if it chooses to grant expedited process, it is not required to conduct an adjudicative process. There's a few other things that it mentions, but one of them is adjudicative process. So it does not say that the council is precluded from conducting an adjudication, but I suppose you could wonder at why you would grant expedited process if you're going to adjudicate.
Thanks, Ms. Bumpus. I was just trying to think about as we get more information, like for instance, if the council were to grant the expedited process, well, then there's a public hearing. And so if there's then new information that would then, want us to shift to a different direction, then that would be informative for me anyway. So thank you. Please.
Thank you, Chair Beckett. I just wanted to note one other thing, and this is to some of the earlier questions, we did have an indication from the Yakima Nation that they did wish to hold consultation. And I think I mentioned earlier that has not been scheduled yet. So as far as following steps, there's the ones that Ms. Hofgemeyer talked about, but also if we were to hold consultation and the chair meets with the tribe, if there were things that came out of that, those are also things that could be included and considered in the council's deliberations on their recommendation. We just have not scheduled that yet, and I'm not sure if that will take place or not at this time.
Great, thank you.
Council,
Uh,
Lynn, at this time, just to close out.
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. You're
Uh,
really welcome if you think of other things. So
This is
Mr.
Matt
Childs.
Childs again for the record. Director Bumpus, following up on the questions about expedited process and particularly related to the Yakimas, as Lenny Young emphasized in the letter, the Yakimas are concerned that if we did the expedited process, they would not have an opportunity to give input. Is that correct? Or would they still have opportunity to input and such through the expedited process?
That's a very good question. For the record, this is Sonia Bumpus. So my opinion is that yes, there is an opportunity for the Yakima to propose other ideas, other mitigation that may not have been offered up at this time. Through the consultation process, there is an opportunity there, I think. And there is time with the proposed schedule that we have, there is time to bring that information to the council by way of the chair reporting to the council, and for the council to consider that in its recommendation. So in my opinion, there is opportunity, even though we may not be going the route of an adjudication.
Anything further, Mr. Childs? Welcome if you do.
Nothing further at this point. Thank you.
Okay. Other council questions or comments?
Chair, this is Andrew Grantham. I see that Eli Levitt has his hand raised on Teams.
Thank you. Mr. Levitt.
Hi, Director Bumpus. This is Eli Levitt from the Department of Ecology. I was just curious about what you just said in terms of would the Yakima tribe be able to provide confidential information to FSEC during an expedited process? I think that was a key consideration in their recent concerns, at least as I heard it earlier in the meeting.
And if I may, thank you, Council. And let me tag on to that because that was my question about adjudication, which may go to our council here tonight. But I'll address it to you, Director Bumpus, first. Can you expand on why the confidentiality only accompanies adjudication in terms of sensitive matters that we all take seriously, in this case, the Yakima Nation? Question I certainly had. I appreciate yours, Eli, as well. And so if you could expand on why that's so constrained only in adjudication, because I would think even if that's the law today, I've got to believe there's other means to kind of get to some of those important conversations without always having to only be able to do it in adjudication.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just jump in maybe. So this is John Thompson with the Attorney General's office. So it all comes down to the fact that there's an exemption under the Public Records Act for archaeological resources, for one thing. And then another is reports about traditional cultural places. And that's the exemption that enables us to protect sensitive information that's been disclosed to us, like the report that was produced in this case has been held as confidential under that exemption. And then, the sort of the contents of that report as well, we consider to be confidential. So I think from what I understand, the Yakima Nation's concern is that they they like the opportunity to present in person to the full council. I understand, but I don't think it's, I think it's the importance of that opportunity to address the council in spoken
Privately.
form, which does create a difficulty in terms of confidentiality, because when our council meets as a quorum, it has to be in an open public meeting context. So necessarily public. So.
Thank you. I think Director Bumpus is going to supplement, perhaps.
Well, I was just going to add, for the record, this is Sonia Bumpus, that in the past, when the FSEC chair has met with the tribal council, it's been in a closed meeting. So the as Mr. Thompson mentioned, you know, there are constraints around the sort of the audience with the council at large, but for the consultation part of our process that's yet to play out, that when we've had those in the past, those have been discussions between the chair and the tribal council members, and those have been closed discussions.
Thank you. Councilman Levitt, did that answer your question? Or did you wish to follow up, since especially you're online? Feel free to jump in here.
Yes, that answered my question. Thank you.
Are there other comments or questions? Other council? Okay. We are at 6:17, so thank you to our members of the public who are here for letting the council conduct its business, and a little longer than originally forecast. So Director Bumpus, anything else you care to add? If there's not further discussion, then soon we will need to consider the action before us.
For the record, this is Sonia Bumpus. I would just reiterate what Ms. Hofkemeyer said earlier. This decision is not your recommendation on the project. There are still opportunities for comment. There are still opportunities for technical engagement with the tribe and others. And there's still also the mechanism, the pathway of consultation. This action that's before you is only about whether to grant the applicant's request for expedited process, which is dependent upon meeting those two criteria, the consistency with land use and that all identified impacts are mitigated to levels of non-significance. I just reiterate that.
Thank you. Also, I did remember my other question that I was pausing there for a second to try and remember. The 60 days that are required, or that are is the period associated with expedited review, given that we also have a statutory deadline to review and make recommendations on projects within 1 year, and clearly we're a little beyond that already on this project. Can either Director Bumpus or Council further expand on the realities of that deadline? I sense there's some concern about just the nature of speed and time, and 60 days will go quick. So if you'd like to speak to what requirements or latitude exist under that that pathway of expedited review, that'd be appreciated.
Certainly. So in the initial, I wouldn't call it an initial statute, but in our guiding statute 8050, the requirement for reviewing a project within 12 months is outlined, or such time as mutually agreed upon by the council and the applicant. RCW 80.50.075 then outlines what an expedited process might look like and asks the council to make rules to adhere to that. So then taking a look at FSEC's rules in Washington Administrative Code 46343 are rules for expedited processing. And that is where the timelines for that are laid out. The initial timeline is 120 days or such time as agreed upon by the council and the applicant to make the decision on expedited processing. When the Carriger project initially approached that deadline, FSEC had issued that letter indicating that it seemed like a determination of significance was anticipated. At that point, Cypress Creek Renewables requested that FSEC hold off on making a decision while they exercised their right, as in spelled out in the statute, to make modifications to their project to try and achieve a mitigated determination of non-significance. And that is much of the work that Ms. Snarsky described for visual setbacks, additional work conducted by staff and the applicant and other agencies. So now that some of the milestones leading up to expedited process have been met, that is the question in front of the council today. And then WAC 463-43020 is the chapter that indicates that a decision or a recommendation shall be made to the governor within 60 days of being granted expedited process, again, or such time as agreed upon by the council and the applicant. Currently, the review period is through June 25th, 2025.
And so if the council ultimately, or staff, or other parties, I guess, associated with this entire process, if in fact day 61 or beyond was needed, is there a cure in basically adjusting the rule or no?
I believe that would be within our options. Again, the line or such time as is agreed upon with the council and applicant. I think if we were to reach that point, we would want to coordinate with Cypress Creek and see which new timeline would be appropriate to complete any remaining work.
Okay. For the record, I can assure you the staff will find my question I just made ironic, given I'm Mr. Time Certain Outcomes as the new chair. But thank you for the added information. I guess the comment I would add is, or a couple, pardon me while I gather my thoughts here in the moment. On the one hand, if the council were to agree to expedited review, we have, I'm sure, different opinions about the benefits or burdens of adjudication. It is clearly a more litigious and just courtroom-like atmosphere, and there's good reasons for that sometimes. And I take heavily, as Mr. Young called out early, and thank you again, Councilor Young, for sharing your perspective in early, and that's appreciated as far as where your thinking is. Ultimately, how we engage with the Yakima is critical to me. I believe it's critical to the council and to the staff. And much as I appreciate the benefits of adjudication to accomplish that, I'm in hopes that we also find some other real world ways to come to an agreement so that we could have a better exchange between the Yakima Nation and the council, both as a whole, and in this case, it's been designated to the chair to conduct that consultation. And I think ultimately, as I understand it, consultation is often ongoing and not just a singular moment. And I'm certainly committed to that. In this case, if that were to allow, or we could find a path to do that and not always have the burdens that I think come both not just cost, but on communities, on other parties associated with any application, that there's important rights and process with adjudication, but there's also some pretty heavy burdens that come with it. And so that's what I reflect on as we grapple with this choice here. And I don't think any of us want to rush to a decision by any means, including as we look at our members of this community. And I certainly look at you. And I know this is very important to you. So we want to take the time we need. But obviously, we've been taking quite a bit of time. And I don't know that adjudication is necessarily going to resolve all the different issues that are ultimately before us, including those with the Yakima, much as I'm committed to trying to find that path. So ultimately, if I'm hearing that the expedited review, while it has a 60-day clock to it that I think I interpret many of the council members are concerned about. If there is a means to try to make that, that timeframe, which I think we should, if the council were to, to decide to go down that path, then ultimately I think we have some latitude of what to do if we need more time, or if there is a need to decide that no, there was an adequate ability to work with the Yakima in a way that the council itself as a whole ultimately wanted the council and the chair to do so. Whether or not that, is appealing to the council, I'll let each of you decide ultimately, I guess, in your vote. We'll see if there's other comments or questions here, including from anything I've just shared. But it would seem that we do have viable paths in some form. I know the non-adjudicative path with the Yakima Nation might be a little less clear at this moment, but it seems that there is some merit to exploring that, at least from my perspective. So I'll stop my comments there and see if there are other questions or other clarifications of any errors I may have made in the midst of my comments. So
Not an error you made, an error I made. If I could please correct my citation earlier, the recommendation within 60 days is WAC 463-43.080, not 020. My apologies.
thanks for the clarification. Anything further from staff before I turn this to council for further questions and discussion? Nothing from staff. Council? Mr. Childs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair Beckett. I have a question on adjudicated versus the expedited. It seems to me that the expedited has advantages over the adjudicated in that the expedited is a friendlier and more open place for people in the community and such to be able to get their comments forward. Would you say that that is a correct thought, or are they both kind of equal in that way, or am I misreading things and adjudicated is actually an easier way for the community to get their input in?
I'll try to address that. Again, this is John Thompson. The adjudicative process is, as Chair Beckett alluded to, is much more formal and requires parties to be represented by attorneys and so forth. And in some cases, yeah, there may not be parties that want to make that investment to actually do that. There is a public comment opportunity that's associated with the adjudication, but it does require anybody who wants to take advantage of that to submit their issue in writing in advance. Whereas the public comment opportunity that would be afforded if you went with expedited process just allows just anybody who wants to state a comment to do so or submit comments in writing. So it is, yeah, I think it's accurate that it's more kind of open process for the less formal approach.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Thompson, I can see where having to get an attorney involved to get your point across suddenly makes things exponentially more difficult. Although in the end, maybe that attorney can help you in whatever your grievance may be. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from council? Anyone online that I'm missing, Ms. Grantham? Okay. So with that, and also out of respect to if, depending on the action here, we may or may not move into public comments. So let me see if there is a motion to, make sure I read this correctly. Is there a motion to move to expedited review for the Carriger solar project? Anything else I need to add to that, council, to make sure this is accurate for the record? Okay, so I've attempted the motion to state. Appreciate if someone would care to move a motion. And Mr. Pamplin.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I move that the council grant the expedited processing for as described under council order number 899. And if there's a second, I'd like to briefly comment about it.
And we will take council discussion after the motion, if it is put onto the table. We have a motion. Is there a second?
This is Eli Levitt. I'll second.
Thank you, Council Levitt. We have a motion and a second to adopt the motion to move to expedited review for the Carriger Solar project. We'll now move to council discussion on the motion.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair, and appreciate the second. My comments are just very brief. In reviewing this project, note that the MDNS has already been granted. I'm interested in hearing from the public this evening on the merits of the project, as well as appreciate Chair Beckett that you're going to be meeting with Yakima Nation to understand further their concerns, that you'd be bringing that back to the council for our deliberations if this order is granted. So because we have a number of additional process steps, I'm comfortable moving forward with the expedited review. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Other council members who wish to make a comment before the motion is considered?
This is Stacy Brewster.
Council Brewster.
I would just second Councilman Hamplin, excuse me, Nate's comments. If we move forward with expedited processing, I would do so with the expectation that we address the Yakima Nation's concerns through an option other than adjudicative process.
Very well noted. Thank you. Any other council comments? Or again, if there are questions, we're happy to take them, but it might be a little more in the discussion mode here or comments. Online? Okay. Then I will call for action to be considered here in a vote. So for all those in favor of moving to the with me here, sorry, in my new meeting and too many pieces of paper. As we move to the expedited review for the Carriger Solar project, all those in favor saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
And help me on my word. To abstain. Any abstentions? Hearing none. Okay, the motion then is adopted and we will move to expedited review, which then means that I will soon conclude this meeting and we will move to our public comment period. So without further question or anything else from our council, I will close the special meeting where we've taken action. And I will open let's make sure I get my title right here. Our public comment hearing on the Carriger Solar application. So we will now be moving into the public comment period. As expected, the time for concluding the last meeting was 6:32, and we have opened at 6:33 p.m. to our special meeting for public comments. This evening, and I believe staff will help me here in a moment with both those who have signed up for public comment. Please note that for those of you who may be listening in but still wish to make a comment but haven't signed up, you can phone 360-664-1345. Normally this is done before, or you can email FSEC at efsec@fsec.wa.gov. For anyone online, as well as I think those who are in online, if you note your interest in speaking, you might be able to capture that in the chat. We'll do our best to make sure everyone's heard. In that regard, we will take comments for 3 minutes from each person this evening. We are scheduled to conclude at 8 o'clock. If we do, I think we can get through most of the comments in that same period of time. I just note that out of respect for the staff and others who have put this hearing on, as well as our council members. So we would like to conclude at 8 o'clock, but we'll move to hear from folks so we can accomplish that goal. And appreciate everyone speaking to the project specifically. Is what we will take testimony on. And in particular, if there are local considerations, things that in particular might be comments that are relevant to a county commission conditional use permit. So more local conditions, those are in particular of not only interest, I think always to the council, but as are comments in particular that are appropriate for this public comment period especially. So unless staff or council would like to clarify anything I've shared as to the purpose of this. I would then note that Council Childs who submitted a letter to the council and is available for the public, would like to speak to that letter first. And as a member of the council, while we'd like to keep moving expeditiously, please take the time that you need. And then we will move into our public comment period for 3 minutes. And the first person signed up, just as a heads up, in a few minutes, Delmer Eldred, and then Candy Magnuson. So you'll be our first 2 speakers up, which again, I'll call you up, and Andrea and Alex will help me with that as well. So Andrea or Ms. Grantham?
Yes, I would also like to add that we also have a comment campaign live right now online at comments.fsec.wa.gov. So anybody online who doesn't want to speak at the meeting tonight, they can also submit written comment.
Thank you. And again, written comments, if you don't wish to speak or supplement your verbal testimony, you also have a comment box here physically in the room. So with that, Council Childs.
Thank you, Chair Beckett. This is, for the record, this is Matt Childs, and I am speaking on behalf of Klickitat County as Klickitat County's representative for the Carriger project on this board. I'm going to basically be reading my letter that I have written with a few adjustments because some new stuff has come up today. I'm writing today to clarify the concerns that Klickitat County still has regarding the Carriger Solar Project and to propose various ways that those concerns can be mitigated. This project is going to have a large impact on the county should it be built, and how it is executed will directly impact not only the greater project area, but the willingness of the county to participate in future potential solar developments that the county may host. Over the past few months, the county has been working on writing a solar and BESS ordinance. I am on the committee that is working to do that. And many of the mitigation requests that I'm going to be bringing before the council today are a direct result of the stuff we have been learning and studying as we pursue that ordinance. The direction that the committee is taking, that is the county committee, as it writes the ordinance, is to allow solar and BESS projects in Klickitat County, but with a lot of mitigations. It is our hope that FSEC will in fact potentially be the lead on a number of these future projects, because the FSEC process, we believe, is a good and secure way to really cover all the bases in a way that a small county like ours simply cannot staff as well as the state can through FSEC. Moving on to concerns. Concern number 1, the Carriger project is directly impacting adjacent residences. I am pleased to see that the setback from adjacent properties is up to 500 feet. To non-participating homes, and I would hope that's to their non-participating property lines, because just because a home isn't on one side of the property doesn't mean that the whole property is not impacted. The second way that we can reduce that impact is by creating visual barriers, such as earthen berms, wooden fences, and vegetation that is planted and maintained, so that it can mitigate that visual impact of the solar array. Next concern is that the project will look industrial instead of rural. One of the things why people live in a rural community is it is rural and it doesn't look like a center of industry. There is a balance to that because farms by their very nature are industrial, and especially a successful farm has a lot of trucks going back and forth. It may have a lot of buildings and equipment going at all hours. However, it's a little different for a true industry. So to avoid the industrial look, I would suggest that building security fencing in an agricultural style. I'm pleased to see that Cypress Creek is moving that direction with the proposed game fence as opposed to barbed wire and excuse me, chain link, razor wire type stuff. I think the fence is too high at 8 foot. It's still going to look pretty industrial. And if we could drop that height down to 5 or 6 feet, it appears that they are concerned about deer in there. I would like to see all wildlife be able to move through the property, because when wildlife are pushed to corridors, it changes everything about them. In particular, this Carriger project and future projects, anything in a rural area should not have razor wire, chain link fence, and other high security type fences. Woven wire that is typical in agricultural areas is sufficient, with a strand or two of barbed wire on top. And that can be supplemented by the modern technology of motion sensors and cameras and such. Third concern is the destruction of good agricultural land. Our solar and BESS ordinance is moving very strongly toward requiring agrivoltaics, which is that solar arrays need to coexist with agriculture within the boundaries of the project, and that solar arrays should not be set aside as a non-agricultural use. We would request that the panels be designed in a way that can be tilted up to 90 degrees so that farm equipment and livestock can potentially move through when needed be, especially farm equipment. Especially we want to require that any existing irrigation rights within the project area either be transferred or banked to remain in beneficial use within Klickitat County, because irrigation water is something that we do not have much of, we cannot get more of, and we can get less of if we lose it. Another concern is the hazards of fighting grass fires under solar arrays. We are proposing solutions, again, requiring that the panel design is designed in such a way that the panels can be tilted up easily to 90 degrees, suddenly allows easy access for firefighting aircraft, and additionally designing a grazing component into agrivoltaics can facilitate vegetation reduction around the structures by allowing cows, sheep, whatever it is, to move in around there. Another concern is, and this is a big concern, is with the BESS units that are proposed. There is still no way to put out a BESS fire. We would request, and our proposed ordinance will probably require that BESS systems need to use an inherently fire-safe engineering, a system that cannot catch fire, such as lead acid batteries, sodium liquid systems, which are in development and very close to being deployed commercially. But the existing lithium technology has been demonstrated over and over again to be unsafe. If the lithium type batteries are moved or are used, we would request that they be either secured in an underground bunker or inside of some sort of above ground concrete bunker of some sort, so that in the inevitable event of fire, fumes cannot get out to disturb the neighbors, to pollute the lands, and to potentially endanger the community's health. The community really does not want to accept this risk of toxic fumes. One other concern about BESS units is the noise. I'm glad to see that that is also being addressed by Carriger, or by the Carriger project. Noise is a very sensitive thing that a lot of people in urban areas don't understand, but in a rural area, even a noise as low as 35 or 40 decibels is a noticeable noise. The crickets are making a noise of 35 or 40 decibels, and they're very loud. In rural areas, we do not have a lot of background noises a lot of the year. There's no freeway going by, so at 50 or 60 decibels for fans, if you're hearing a fan, that is going to drive you crazy, because you're not used to living next to a freeway or other things that are in urban areas. One last concern is the impact on the community at large. We would like to see this and future projects engineered so that they can be integrated with the local Klickitat County PUD in such a way that in an emergency, the county can directly tie to that grid to supply electricity to the county. When the big one comes and the grid goes down on the west side, if we're not connected to the electricity here, we cannot help. And all the electricity that is being generated is being lost and can't even help locally. As an emergency precaution, we want to see a way for that electricity to be emergency transferred into the local grid. We generate a lot of power in this county already between wind, existing solar, and especially the dams. And most of that county, or most of the electricity is shipped out of state and is not benefiting this county at all. We want to see benefits from the electricity that's produced here that is impacting all of our lives. We've lost our free-flowing rivers. We have lost our beautiful hills to blinking red lights and wind turbines. And it is looking like many of our valleys will soon be covered in solar arrays. So with this cost, we want to see a benefit come back to Klickitat County if this is the cost that we are going to be required to bear. In addition to tying into the grid, we would like to see some percentage of that electricity, of the electricity being generated, either financially or as direct electricity, go to our local PUD so that everyone can benefit from some sort of lowered rates. This kind of thing has been done in Klickitat County before when the public landfill, regional landfill came in about 35 years ago. That was something that really impacts the whole county, even though most of the county can't see it because it's a huge environmental thing that's waiting for a potential catastrophe. We've all benefited in the meantime, though, not just by taxes, but by 7 cents per ton of fee that is collected by the county for every ton of waste that dumps into there. That benefits the whole county in reducing all our property taxes, something that can benefit the whole county when so much of the county is impacted by the change in the nature of the county as it turns more industrial. In conclusion, the Carriger project is a large and highly visible project near many people and easily visible by many more. If this project is built, it should be built as a demonstration project so that people can positively see how solar can add to the environment. There are many projects that many of us have driven by around the Northwest that are lousy demonstration projects. We can look just as far north as Ellensburg and see beautiful alfalfa fields that are now covered in gravel and solar panels. If you've been down near Salem recently, you'll see similar things. We would like to see solar integrated with agriculture instead of replacing agriculture. If FSEC and the solar industry do not address these concerns, I am personally concerned that solar will become very much a pariah, not only in rural areas like ours, but even in urban areas. And that will be to the detriment of not just us, but to the whole nation, because we do need electricity. And so if we are going to be doing solar, then we need to be doing it responsibly in a way that we can be proud of and not in a way that is going to be taking large tracts of agricultural land out of production. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Childs, and thank you as well for the time and thought that you put into that letter that was submitted to the council for the record and is available to all members of the public. So thank you again. So with that, let me turn to Alex and Andrea. Pardon my first names as I try and get through here the first go around for me. So I believe I read our first member of the public to come forward is Delmer Eldred. Again, we'll be taking your comments on the project for 3 minutes. Obviously, the clock is up here. We appreciate your understanding and respect for that. And Mr. Eldred, and then Candy Magnuson, you will be up next. Welcome.
Guys, please consider not approving the project on Knight Road. This is good, valuable farm and ranch land that needs to be preserved for agricultural use. And placing a large industrial solar site will make this land unusable for food production forever. These solar sites will soon be replaced with reliable, efficient form of energy, and the destruction of good agricultural land will all be for nothing. The only ones that will benefit are Carriger, making a fortune on their government subsidies. The end result in the short life of these solar sites will be massive environmental disaster of millions and millions of decommissioned solar panels for the next generation to deal with. Also, the amount of devastation to the habitat and wildlife as well. And I have not, the solar sites that I've looked at, the wildlife has not been able to graze in these areas, which they have to try to move and relocate in different locations, which make the food source less and less for each of them. And also the birds that think that this solar panel is a body of water land on there and get fried. So this has a very bad reputation for the habitat, the wildlife. And, you know, the common sense thing is not to allow this project to be approved. And I ask you to please deny this application. And if anybody thinks that the bottom line of Carriger is to spend as much money as possible to satisfy the people in the area that they're putting these solar sites in, you're living in a fantasy world. This company is dedicated to profit, and that's what it's all about. Anybody that has looked at millions and millions of panels in California that are sitting there because they don't have anything to do with these decommissioned, they're just going to let them sit there, and who knows what will ever come of them. But that land is just sitting there with panels that are not even being used, and we're going to be in the same situation. It isn't going to be any different here than it is there. And so this is not beneficial. It stops all any kind of productive thing that this county could do will be sewed up with this solar that has taken the area. And you can't have a subdivision, you can't have anything else going because you have solar. And to think that they are going to try and work with the community and spend an excess amount of money, I don't know. That's not going to happen.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Eldred. Ms. Magnuson, if you would please.
Same. I'm going to speak for myself, but also for people that can't come here, that have given up speaking. They say it's a done deal. It's sad. And I hope you looked when you came through how beautiful this area is, because it's not going to be that way anymore. And I'll tell you why. Greg Wagner lives up there where it's going to be. And I've been a realtor for 27 years, and I know the value of land, okay? His property is going to, right now, if he put a for sale sign up on his property, guess what? He's not going to sell it. He can't sell it. Nobody's going to buy it because he has obligated to tell people, hey, there's going to be a couple thousand acres of solar right here and across the road. And knowing Craig, he would tell it. He wouldn't lie. He would say that, okay? The secrecy of these people that's come in here and signing up leases. Don't tell, don't tell. That's right on the leases, don't tell. So it took a while for people to wise up, okay? Because we're related and friends and stuff like that. Well, it so happens that now people, when I ask them, do you know where the leases are? Most people do not know where the leases are. It's secret. There's going to be 2,000 acres or 1,000 acres south of Goldendale, right up to the city limits. What do you think that's going to be? That's going to affect the houses in town, out of town, all the value. Businesses are going to leave. Businesses aren't coming when they see this mess. No. School, it's going to affect the school, the hospital, and everybody that lives around them. Their value of their land is going to be going down, and God help them if they can sell it, because I don't think they can. Also, it's going to affect that those panels have chemicals in them. If a hailstorm comes and wipes out half of them, which we've had hailstorms here, okay, that leaks chemicals into the ground, into the water. People living down below, water runs downhill, guys. Their wells are going to be contaminated. Do you think that, and he's going to say different, do you think that company is going to come and pick up all those panels and take care of it? No, they're going to go bankrupt. And the biggest solar company in the world has gone bankrupt last month. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Magnuson. Elaine Harvey and then Dave Barta.
Good evening. I hope you can hear me. My name is Elaine Harvey. I'm a resident, a lifetime resident of this area. I'm from the Clementpa Band. My people's been here forever. I left to go to college and I came back. I worked for my tribe for 20 years. My last 2 years, I was evaluating more than 40 projects that are impacting Yakima, ceded territories, that are impacting our food, our salmon. These companies come, they suck the water out of these dry creeks. They're still heading there. Do they care? No. Do they care about us and our food that we gather? I have big concerns with the MDNS decision. I live here, I live there at the proposed site. I chose to live there because of the food, our traditional foods and medicines. I gather food there. I'm a walk-in, living specimen. I'm a Yakima tribal member. Nobody can deny that. This project is going through our traditional food gathering route. There are many culturally significant plants in this area that's going to be impacted. The state lands south of Fish Hatchery Hill Road, along Hill Road. We gather there. I'm worried about the water resources that's going to be impacted because the water resources impact our cultural resources. The traditional cultural properties that Yakima Nation spoke about in that letter. I live there, I know. There are state species of concern on the DNR list for indigenous hawks. There's resident bald and golden eagles there. There are many wildlife there. This is a migratory corridor from the Simcoe Mountains to the valley. And there's hunting that occurs, state hunting, that's going to be impacted. And the hatchery, is all these getting taken under consideration in this expedited process that you guys just voted on? There are many residences that live there. There's a best 2 acres lithium battery across the road from me. I'm going to be impacted. I'm worried about my children and grandchildren. What's going to happen when there's a fire? I live there. What is FSEC going to do? What is the people leasing the land going to do when something happens? Are you guys going to be there to help? And my property values are going to go down? I pay for views. My view sheds are gonna be gone. And I don't want to go dig roots and look at solar panels. And these solar panels are gonna impact our roots. I know that. And it's really detrimental what's happening here, what's gonna happen to this very important land, what we call home, and to the wildlife especially, and to our people who are here. We never moved to the reservation, we live here. We gather our foods here. People can say, yeah, Yakima is over there, but no, we're here. We're the Comithpo Band, one of the 14 tribes and bands that make the Yakima Nation. We never relocated. And this project will significantly impact our cultural resources. And I'm speaking on behalf of my band. And I have that right from our chief, Bonsco Jim Jr., Yumti Chum.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Mr. Barta, Dave Barta.
Good evening, council members. My name is Dave Barta. I live west of Goldendale. Thanks for the opportunity to comment on FSEC's desire to expedite Carriger's permitting. The original land use consistency determination was made largely based on EOZ document and the conditional use process present in the Klickitat County Comprehensive Plan. The land use consistency appears to have ignored Klickitat County Board of Commissioners Resolution 01121, which required all projects hooking up to the Knight Road substation be required to go through the conditional use permit process. The BOCC Resolution 01121 states, whereas it's the intent of Klickitat County Zoning Ordinance number 62678 as amended to provide uniform, equitable, and reasonable standards to govern the usage of land and structures in the interest of public health, safety, and general welfare, etc. And then the land use order, which I know isn't under debate now, but I'm just taking us back there a little bit, goes on to say, well, quarrying is allowed, so solar panels should. I don't know of any 2,300 acre quarries in the county. I know of one that's maybe 40 acres, one that's 5, and maybe one other that's 10. Reasonable standards. The resolution does clearly, the 01121 does clearly address land use planning. And it's not a moratorium. It simply clarifies the application of the energy overlay zone when the BPA substation is outside the EOZ. That this resolution may have been ignored in the land use consistency order makes me wonder what else was. You talked about cumulative impacts. A little while ago, I had the pleasure of having a toothache, I remember about 8 or 9 years ago. And so I went to the dentist and of course took an x-ray out. You got to have a filling, have to have a filling. So I had a filling. 2 days later, I got a great big thing swollen on my face. Eventually got about half the size of a hardball in baseball because the x-ray didn't get the root of the tooth where there was an abscess. You can't look at one single thing like the Carriger project and say, well, we can only determine one project at a time. I understand the law and the legal and all that, but you're ignoring a reality. We all know how many acres have been pre-optioned. It's pretty well known. So you need to consider cumulative right now in this process. In August of 2023, Director Bumpus wrote a letter that said, we think there might be a determination of significance. I felt like in reading through the MDNS, her concerns, frankly, were largely ignored in my opinion. They generally were visual impacts. We'll paint the batteries a different color. And they did move panels back a few dozen yards from the road and from some residences. And then there was also the tribal concerns, which you've talked about at length. I suggest that you meet in person with the tribe. If that's how they wish to communicate, please do that. Doing it in any other way, it doesn't, I'm sure there are mechanisms in place that can make that happen. The term applicant is used throughout the MDNS. It doesn't say applicant owner. I know it's a minor point. It concerns me. Carriger sells projects. So I'm hoping the term applicant applies to whoever's down the road when you have to decommission it. I don't know the answer to that, but I hope it's true. I think for all these reasons, expedited processing was a mistake. I hope that you will take into account seriously the concerns that local citizens and the tribe have concerning this project and the future of Klickitat County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barta. Up next, we have Greg Wagner and Dave Teese, and then Ms. Grantham will, or Alex will assist me with those who have also signed up.
My name's Greg Wagner with CEAS. A portion of this project is outside the energy overlay zone. It's not consistent with land use zoning and would require a conditional use permit. This man here said he got a conditional use permit. I don't remember that ever happening at the county. Issuing your land use consistency decision was wrong and should be null and void. The BESS system is not a permitted use in the energy overlay zone and any other zone in the county. It requires a county conditional use permit. BESS cannot be permitted without a conditional use permit from the county. Proposed BESS has not been reviewed properly by FSEC members. You have failed to address the real dangers to the people. The people's safety, health, and welfare have not been taken into consideration. BESS dangers are real, as proven by the Moss Landing BESS fire that burned uncontrollably for 5 days, injured people, and forced them from their homes. This Carriger, this BESS was a state-of-the-art facility, but that didn't prevent the fire explosion and release of deadly fumes. Carriger's BESS will have the same dangers. Rural 7 fire is unprepared, untrained, and ill-equipped to extinguish a BESS fire. The remote location does not have a water source for fire suppression, and Rural 7 lacks enough tenders to supply the needed water. FSEC required the Watoma solar projects, and it had best to have an artificial water source for helicopter fire suppression and a 10,000-gallon water cistern for fire suppression. Are these the same requirements for the Carriger solar and BESS project? A fire at a Carriger BESS will pose a great danger to the people, the wildlife, and the environment, and these issues have not been addressed. The inconsistent zoning and BESS issues are significant, and your MDNS was premature and improperly issued and must be rescinded. You cannot grant expedited processing, and for this ill-conceived project, it must go through the adjudication process. And I understand now we have this project here, it's 2,008 acres. That's only phase 1. Carriger plans probably another 4,000 acres. There'll be a phase 2 and a phase 3, just like Avangrid's Lund Hill Bluebird, and now they have enough land for another project out on the east end of the county. And I think it's shameful for you folks to go to expedited processing when you still don't have all the conclusions from the Yakima tribe concerns. I don't think that's fair. I don't believe you should be doing that. We live here. You don't live here. We have to put up with this. You don't. You can go home. You don't have to look at this. Your property values, your way of life will not change. I hate to say it, but I don't think you care about us. All these renewables, this useless renewables forced upon us by Governor Inslee and now Ferguson, the Climate Commitment Act, the Clean Energy Transformation Act, and all these policies that the county put in place is all detrimental. It's all focused to us on the east side of the state. You guys don't have solar sites. You can't call it a farm. It isn't growing nothing green. It's not growing anything good. It's all bad. These people are takers, whether it's Cypress Creek, Avangrid, Inver Energy, Next Era, Connect Gen, all these companies that are wanting to lease land here, they're here to take advantage of our county. They don't give nothing back. When they leave, when they go bankrupt, all their mess will be on us. And that includes you all. And their their energy is costly. And that comes to you at your house too. Your rates go up. We get impacted by it, negatively impacted by it. And you all just going to pass it. You'll go home and just say, well, boy, we got that done. You don't seem to have any compassion for the people who are forced to live by this junk. And these guys that go back home to Santa Monica and his buddy Ty Wallace and all them, they don't care either. If this is so good, build this by your house and see how you like it. We don't want it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Teese.
Well, I wish I was as good a speakers as the people that have gone before me, but I'm not. My name is Dave Teese. I'm representing the Columbia Gorge Audubon Society this evening. First, your decision to dispose of the opportunity for the public to make judicial appeal. Gee, I wish that would have happened after we had a chance to talk. It just seems like that would have been the best way to do it. But you know, there's a benefit to having the option, at least, of judicial appeal. And that benefit is that it reminds everybody both beforehand and after that there could be consequence to decisions. Okay, that's a real benefit. Yeah, it's a tough thing to do, but it's a benefit, and it's a constitutional protected benefit to appeal, for the right of the people to appeal. That's gone. Okay. It seems like FSEC has quite a lot of time to hear from proponents of energy projects and very little time to hear from the impacted public. We respectively suggest that limiting the public comment to 3 days on the critical design decisions you are making is simply inadequate. This brief comment period suggests to us that FSEC fears public comment. We request that you extend the public comment period for writing letters so that our citizens can feel we are actually being encouraged to participate through this process. The comment period should be long enough for us to provide a considered review and have time to write by hand, as I have to do, our letters, and time for those letters to be mailed and received by you. As for myself, representing Audubon, I would like to write about 3 pages of comments. I can't send it by computer. Perhaps you have a fax number. We hope that this request does not sound unreasonable to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Teese. Alex, if you could help us call the next 2 people. And some of this may be online, just for everyone's awareness here in a moment.
Of course. For the record, this is Alex Shiley. I will be calling up our next signed up speaker. That is Ken McCune, my apologies.
June, right here from Goldendale.
Welcome.
Have you guys checked to see what's going on in Washington, D.C.? I thought President Trump was going to cut the alternative energy projects. Is Carriger or Cypress Creek still going to get subsidies to build this? You know, does that put a change in their plans if they're not going to get our taxpayer money for their projects? And what do you might be thinking, well, what do you got that's better than the solar panels? You know, and BESS and the visual pollution, the seas of black glass. Used to be, you know, right now it's green grass and golden grass, and it's pleasant to the eye. A sea of solar panels, it just changes this area so greatly. It's just so unnatural compared to what we're also used to. And so I was kind of wondering if I could submit an alternative for these fellows, these farmers, and I know a lot of them. And in a way, I can't blame them for wanting that money, but they can make more off of their land with hemp per acre than they can the solar. Well, you seed it, you use a seeder, you get it in the ground, you watch it grow, it gets, the best is the tallest and skinniest you can grow for the fibers. You can make paper, fiber, food. Some of the best, you're not going to believe this one. Next to mother's milk, there is nothing better for a baby than hemp milk, made from the soaking the seeds. And for all of us, it's healthy. It's got a natural antibiotic in it. And it also has a molecule that makes it good for developing fuel because it explodes. It's just so multifaceted. It's been around for thousands of years. Our forefathers promoted it. And the only reason it isn't prominent in our society today is because of the marijuana scare. The DuPont and the big can't think of his name, from San Francisco that made newspapers. They all got it all outlawed and brought the marijuana scare. And hemp farms used to be a mainstay of our economy until they made it illegal. So can I submit this to you and have you take it back and look at it and look at the possibilities of having a hemp economy.
We're certainly happy to take the materials. Our staff in the back have a box by which we can submit them. That'd be fine. We appreciate your joining us tonight.
Let's get through World War II.
Thank you, sir.
Our next signed up speaker is Todd Andrews.
Mr. Andrews is outside. Is there the next speaker? And we can come back to Mr. Andrews.
Of course, the next speaker signed up is Jean Callan.
I'm sorry, could you spell that last name for us? Thank you, sir.
Mr. Callan is quicker on the gun than I am. It is Callan for the record.
Thank you, sir.
I live at 38 adjacent to the project. I think three of our property lines abut it. In fact, I think one of our family members has a 52-acre parcel that's completely engulfed by it. I'm not sure what the access is. I'll keep my comments really short, mainly because as I was sitting there thinking, I think this is the 6th or 7th time I've testified at a variety of sessions over the last few years. And at least that many or more letters written to all the various reports that have come out over the years. So in the spirit of that, I appreciate all the comments before me and I agree with them. But my comment is basically this project is not cited properly. Are there other locations in our county that could have industrial solar? Possibly, probably, but this is not the right location. I mean, it comes down to a simple, common sense question. We can go through all the engineering analysis and we can spin all we want. The bottom line is it doesn't belong in the Goldendale Valley. So I'll summarize and I'll save a minute and a half, but it's just in the wrong place. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for attending.
Calling up in Mr. Todd Andrews.
Welcome, Mr. Andrews.
Thank you. Bring the trash can up. Events like this are, I don't know. So I kind of at that point where I'm about to throw up. I have a weak stomach for things like this. It saddens me. And so I'm Clickstack County Commissioner, only 4 months. Maybe I'll have thicker skin after another couple of years. So it saddens me because, so the FSEC, that whole process, it's a fine process, but to expedite it, to go against, and I heard all the comments at the beginning, there seemed to be a great concern of dealing with Yakima Nation and dealing with some of the residents, but then maybe not so much since you decided to expedite it. And they just they just wanted their say so, as well as the citizens in this room. They just want a proper process. This county, I've been in this county now 30 years, and they're not people that are not in my backyard kind of people. They are very common sense, great people. They do not, they don't mind industry. They don't mind all these things as long as if they have a say so. That's the reason why we have ordinances. That's the reason why we have zoning. And we have the EOZ for almost 20 years now, and it very clearly states that solar projects are anticipated to be small in size and number. This is not small in size, and the projects will not be small in number. There's a number of other things in the EOZ that state, and I don't know how many of you people have been to this site. I just left Knight Road right before coming here. Only my second time, but I was with people in the area that kind of know it better. So we stopped. So as you go there tomorrow, turn around multiple times. My guess is you'll only go to one location, but as you drive that whole Knight Road, make sure and turn around and look, because my guess is 50 to 75% of the homes on the east end, every home in eastern Klickitat County, you can see from these sites. So if you could not pick a better site, if you wanted to be the most intrusive and lower the most home values that you could, this is the perfect site. If that is the intent, to decimate home values, it's the perfect site. And so, and the other thing, what Elaine stated was just wonderful. And I'd just like to reiterate that Klickitat County welcomes projects like this, just as long as their concerns are met, reasonable concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Chair, this represents the end of the speakers who've signed up to speak. At this time, we usually ask people who are online and wishing to speak to use the Teams function to raise your hand, or if you're calling in by phone, to go ahead and speak up quickly so we can make a note that you'd like to speak. If you're here in person and have decided you'd like to share your thoughts, we ask that you line up at the microphone and, if possible, state and spell your name for the benefit of the court reporter.
Thank you, Alex. Fine job, better than I would have done. So. Welcome. If you could state your name for the record.
My name's Warren Daisy. Last name's Dazey. And I was by that Knight Road project today as well. I live next to it. It borders my property. I've got 44 acres there. For the man from the Audubon Society, I'm not a birder, but I've identified 35 different species of birds on my property. I'm in a major wildlife migration pattern. I get dozens of deer go through my place. Any kind of change in the wind, if there's a problem with solar, is going to come my way. Where am I going to go? I didn't move here to have to hide in a motel or go out of state. I live here. And as far as the presentation that was here when I walked in was well said. Not all of it was true. We talked about 350 jobs. Are those going to come from Klickitat County? No, you know that. They're going to be out-of-state contractors. I mean, it's not rocket science. The green energy tax credits are drying up. The president says it's a scam. I believe him. So we expedite things, we hurry up and try and lock in as much funds as we can before it dries up. Well, I don't know where it all started. I don't know if it was commissioners, what happened, but Klickitat County's been sold out. And if you think the governor or the attorney general, anybody in Olympia gives a rip about Klickitat County, think again. They don't care about Klickitat County. It's full of people that are uneducated like me. We don't know what's going on. We know what's going on. And you do too. You're sitting there, but you know what's going on. Anyway, I'm kind of fed up with the whole thing. I've testified at these things several times before too. I'm not sure it does any good. You can make it happen. You can change things if you want to. Common sense. It's been said before. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daisy. Were there others who wished to come forward? Welcome. If you could state your name again for the record, we'd appreciate it.
Luke through Klickitat County, resident of Goldendale. Got family out 142, drive by Night Road all the time. Can't imagine seeing all that solar out there. Kind of heartbreaking, really. As I sit here and listen tonight, I wasn't going to testify. I wasn't going to say anything because it's all been said before. What you're not seeing here tonight are the hundreds of citizens in Klickitat County who have attended meeting after meeting, public comment after public comment, county commissioner meetings, all the meetings. I happen to sit on the BEST committee with Mr. Childs to help represent the citizens of Klickitat County. And the overwhelming sense in Klickitat County is it's not that we don't want solar. It's just we hear common sense time and time again. This is the worst possible place to put a great big solar farm. There are places that nobody's going to argue. Hey, yeah, we got land. Let's put it out there. That's going to work. But why are we putting it here? Why are we taking on all this risk for so little or no benefit? What's in it for us? Nothing? It seems like we're being exploited. The question that comes to my mind this evening is there anything? Is there a word, an image, a phrase, a song, a sonnet? Is there anything that would move you deeply to consider where everybody's coming from? Not just the people in the room. These are the vanguard here. These are the diehards. These are people that are so committed to making sure that this doesn't get pushed through, bulldozing over the EOZ, bulldozing over the will of the people. We're here to be heard, but we're representing thousands upon thousands, a significant percentage of the population, 27,000 people in Klickitat County. That's not a lot, right? But we're people. We're a community. We've got identity. We've got cultural heritage that's being ignored completely. I heard it tonight. You guys say, oh, well, we got some concerns about this and that. Maybe we can mitigate that. Maybe we can't. Has it been mitigated? I don't know. I don't think it's been mitigated. Maybe, I don't know. Well, let's go ahead and expedite it. I'm not sure that that's the wisest decision. Is that prudent? If it was to go to litigation, is that going to stand? That would be for council to decide. Just based on the minutes of the meeting tonight, I don't know that it would. Please, to the voting members of the body, consider you're making decisions on behalf of a lot of people. It's a touchy issue. People get emotionally charged because it touches their lives, their livelihoods, their children, their grandchildren, their cultural heritage. That's all at stake right now. It's not a simple decision. It's not something we want to just, bulldoze. We want to just push it through because we got a 60-day deadline, end of June, and things move fast. Sometimes the more prudent option is to slow down, take a step back and say, are we doing the right thing? I just ask that you would sleep with that tonight. Consider that moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Grantham, do we have anyone indicating they'd like to speak from online?
None that I'm seeing at the moment.
All right, we would like to invite you, if you are calling in, to unmute yourself and speak up if you're not able to use the hand raise function. If you are, please raise your hand. Otherwise, the meeting is scheduled to end after the last speaker, so this would be the final call for anyone who'd like to speak in person or online. Like to speak, please feel free to just approach the microphone. Just make sure to speak and, if possible, spell your name for the benefit of our court reporter.
If you could make sure the mic hears you in that way.
IPZ,
Thank you.
PHERICK, and I live in Goldendale. And I agree with everything I've heard here tonight. And there's some diehards of us that have written letters, we've attended these meetings. It falls on deaf ears. Like tonight, this is to me an exercise in futility. The only thing I get out of it is you guys have to sit in these hard chairs too. You know, I mean, honest to God, you already voted and then you want our comments? I mean, I'm sorry. We're not stupid here. We know what you're doing. So anyway, I hope you do listen to the last man and do rethink your decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with
Any other
that, Chair, I don't believe we have any more comments.
Okay. I believe that will nearly conclude us. Let me look to council if there were any quick comments that you wish to make. Let me just, out of respect to each of you, ask, and then I'll turn this to staff if there are other closing comments after council. None online, I take it. Okay. Director Bumpus, any further closing comment from staff, or we'll soon wrap this up? Okay, well, thank you again. These are not easy topics. We appreciate each of you having made the effort to not only, for those in attendance, for those who have listened in and participated online. Again, other comments are being gathered. They certainly will be considered of not only the record, but of this council deliberation. And also for everyone's awareness in the moment, the council will be gathering tomorrow morning, May 6th at 9:30 a.m. at World War II Park, where we will at 213 East Bergen Street, so I'm sure many of you know in particular, and we will depart on the site tour from there. It is an open public meeting. You are welcome to attend. It will be more of following along the council as we are ultimately not taking public comment, as well as that we need to see the site with staff alone, as I understand it. So nonetheless, it is a public meeting with the council in full having gathered itself to take the tour. So again, 9:30 tomorrow morning at World War II Park. And with that, at 7:32, I will conclude this public comment hearing. And thank you again for your time and participation. We're adjourned at 7:32.